let's go ahead and get started. Roll call.
So we have Arlene Zortman,
Here.
Tom DeVee,
Yes.
Glenn Pepper,
Yes.
Carrie Snow, here. Jenna Reed, here. Jamie Davis, and Josh Rinaldi.
Here.
And then staff, we have Lauren Selly, here. Quincy Williams, Tracy DeFrancesco,
Here.
Sarah Arney.
Here.
Good. Okay. Everybody's had time to look at the minutes. I need a motion to approve and a second.
I have a question.
Okay. Well, okay, so let's do the motion and then we'll do questions.
Move to approve the minutes.
You said so. Okay, Glenn.
Just a minor point on number 8, LHA report. Number 82 talks about procedure. And it goes right to talking about the fire. The fire was on Tuesday afternoon. They're at that second.
Right?
Yeah, it's a little confusing, but yeah. Talks about HVAC at the suites and then it goes on to fire.
Not a big deal,
Yeah.
but just so you know,
So did I didn't catch that. That's scary. Okay, all right. Approve the minutes with the change. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good. Thank you. That was good. Okay. All right, so public advisory to be heard. Eric, are you talking to it?
No.
All right, organizational updates.
Okay, so there's one that's not on here because it didn't make it in time, but Friday is my last day with LHA. So I'm going to RTD. I start March 30th, so that is happening.
RTDs?
Yeah.
So that means you're going to make sure that we get some really good transportation.
I don't think I have any sway over that conversation, but I will be working as the real estate manager, so I will be involved in development and all things RTD real estate. So yeah, you won't be rid of me yet.
It's okay, we'll definitely get in touch if we need somebody, right?
So everybody says I have someone on the inside.
Well, good for you.
Yeah, so thank you. It's been an honor and a pleasure serving on this board originally for 4-ish years, and then getting to work with you guys while in my role here. So thank you.
So March 30th.
All right, next one is organizational updates for recent HUD notices and proposed rules regarding mixed status households and work requirements. And this is discussion only. We don't really have any documentation. I have Tracy, who's been tracking a lot of this to give an update on kind of what's happening, what guidance we're seeing. We have a couple of rules that are in the 60-day comment period, and so a lot of housing providers, organizations, landlords, housing authorities are commenting on how some of these rules will affect operations for our voucher programs. And so Tracy, I will hand it over to you, just kind of give an overview of what we're looking at, what we're having to comply with and experiencing, and yeah, take care. And you're on mute.
How's that? Better?
Better.
Okay. So, if you recall, probably about a year ago, the administration came out and was saying that HUD was housing illegal aliens and they were going to kick all of the illegal aliens off the program and put a 2-year limit on how long they can stay, how long anybody could stay on the program. So that was about a year ago. And then they backed off of that and wanted all the housing authorities to look at their clients and see who had illegal, non-documented aliens that were ineligible in the household. We have 4. And the way that HUD works is if they do a calculation to where we do not assist the person that is not non-documented, not eligible. It appears that they're going to change that they're going to give PHAs the ability to give them a grace period to get the documentation, and if not, then the whole family will not qualify as long as the non-documented person is in the household. So they have to do some changes on that. So we're in a 60-day comment period on regulations that are going to be changing. So it might affect about four of our households at this point.
So Tracy, does that mean that even if the person moved out, the rest of the house would not be eligible?
No, the household would be eligible if the person moved out.
So Tracy, just from my review, it seems like what has been published so far in the Federal Register says that the big difference is that citizens must submit a birth certificate, passport, or other document verifying their citizenship, and then agree to have that shared with HUD and DHS. But my understanding is that this entire time people were, it's not new that people had to sign something under penalty of perjury saying that they qualified for housing benefits with their immigration status. So it seemed to me that the big change here was about the whole family having to either, be split or choosing to split or not being eligible for benefits going forward. That seems to me to be what would maybe have the most effect. But what is your interpretation of that?
So we've always required all household members to submit birth certificates and require them to certify that they're eligible citizens or eligible documented families. And I'm not really sure. I think what they're trying to do right now is stop doing the proration of the assistance.
Right.
We just don't do that anymore. If there's an undocumented, ineligible person in the household, the whole family just doesn't qualify. And so that brings up the fact that most of the time it's a child that is documented, and it's the head of household that isn't.
Right.
So in our case, I want to say all of them, but I think that it might be most of them is the head of household that is not documented. It's just the children.
Right.
So in that case, family's just not going to qualify.
Mm-hmm. And then for the so I'm obviously kind of breaking this apart in two ways, so I don't want to move on to the possible work requirements part if anybody else wants to comment or talk about more of the immigration housing issues. If not, I'll jump into the work stuff too. I've got a couple questions on that for you.
So those families will have a grace period then, and before they're ineligible? Is that correct?
I don't, right now it's in the comment period. I would guess that we would give them a certain amount of time to provide the documentation required in order to become eligible. what I was reading was, I think it was a year. I'm quite sure, but it was a time period that will give them in order to become eligible or show documentation.
So while both of these are very much up in the air, like you said, they're still in the comment period, there's nothing, that's black letter, this is happening. It seems that the requirement regarding like length of ability to have assistance with housing / work requirement, whatever, it seems like the language there is like permissive as opposed to mandatory, and it's really going to, or they're pushing it so that the housing authorities in good standing themselves are making that decision, or somehow specific private landlords will make that decision for their tenants that are receiving vouchers. Is that, does
That's
that
correct.
seem, okay, that's correct. So does that seem like more, I'm trying to think of what I'm trying
Yeah,
to say
it's-
here, something that we might have to flesh out more on our own? I know it's early days, but how we're gonna think about how we wanna respond to that if we do it all, or if LHA does it all.
So they're gonna, my understanding, and this again can change,
Yes.
is that it won't be a federal requirement, but PHAs will have the ability to set time limits on households that aren't elderly or disabled. Work requirements or time limits or both. Lauren and I have been talking about if that comes down, that a lot of, if let's say LHA decides to do that, we would have to build in a self-sufficiency type of a program to support people going back to school, getting some training, job training, but I don't know, it will be a board decision whether we do a time frame or work requirement.
And just because those aren't both still in the comment period too, just wanted to tell everybody, anybody, I'm sure are millions of viewers, but we're checking this out, refresh, just to see our board meetings. But seriously, anybody obviously can still comment on it. I think the work requirements order we have is, I think, let's see, that was published which one was published? The 20th, sorry. The one about immigration status and people needing to provide passports and how our communities are going to respond to that. That one, I believe, was published initially on February 20th, so the public would have till April 20th to comment. And the other was just published, so I think we have until May 1st to comment on that. I just want to say there's two ways to do it. You can go to www.regulations.gov and then search specifically for what HUD has been recommending, or you can go ahead and do it through snail mail. They discourage that one, shockingly. But to the Regulations Division, Office of General Counsel, Department of Housing and Urban Development, 451 7th Street Southwest, room 10276, and that's Washington, D.C. 20410. You can also, I'm pulling that literally from what was published on the 20th by HUD. So as long as you get into that, if you look at 24 CFR Part 5, you can find all that information. And anybody can do it, and I would encourage anybody who cares about this stuff to do so.
So going to the work requirement, isn't there a age thing there? Is it from a certain age up to like 64 or something like that?
Well, it it would be probably up to the PHA. It doesn't require elderly households or disabled households to work or to put a limit on. So it would really be up to how the how the PHA would develop the program, develop the requirements under the housing authority that is developing it. I can't. There's also, you can do an age requirement for children. You need children. You know, if they have children under the age of 14, you cannot require them to work. So it's all up in the air, and it's really, from what I understand, is going to be left to the PHAs to develop.
Okay. Any other questions? Tracy, do you have anything else for us?
No.
Okay. Moving along to development and project updates.
So I'll do my best, with Molly being late, she knows a lot more kind of what's in the pipeline. But as you know, Ascent, we had the grand opening last week. It was really beautiful. I didn't go into the room because it was like standing room only, so I didn't get to hear all the speeches, but I heard they were great, a little bit different from what we usually hear. So thank you for coming if you were able to attend and visit. That project has been like a labor of love for all of us, trying to get the ECE going. It's all come out now that it's like finalized and approved, that our center will be leading the charge on the ECE. So that's really great. Our next kind of project that I'm aware of that's kind of in discussion is the Atwood project. That is one where we had agreed previously, 2 years ago, to be a special limited partner. They went through a few rounds of tax credit applications and they were awarded in 2025. So they are in the process of figuring out on the city side fee waivers and things like that. And then with LHA talking through the special limited partner fees, how that structure is going to go. They were hoping to get project-based vouchers with us way back when. It's not a possibility.
Well, we are still required this year
To not
do
any vouchers.
as if we are still in shortfall.
Okay. So we're still acting like we're in shortfall, even though we're like on the cusp of maybe not being in shortfall in 2026. Remains to be seen as the year goes on and all the vouchers that are sent go online. So they're not going to get any vouchers, which made a big gap. So they're coming back to the city side, trying to figure out how to close that gap. Where LHA is working with them on the special limited partner side. One of the things that is a question is the third-party property management. So that is part of the conversation as well. They're looking to close, I want to say June or July, do their financial closing and start construction right after. That is 75 units of multifamily, 1 and 2 bedrooms, ranging from 30% all the way up to 80%, and they have 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. They have a wide variety of affordability in that project. They're keeping the 30% and the 40% units, which is kind of key, because that layered with the vouchers was going to make the project very feasible. Now without those vouchers, most developers will pull their 30 and 40s and then kick up the 50s, 60s, 70s to make up for the gap. But they are keeping those low cost units, which is incredible. So we're working through that process with them. We had a great meeting with the developer yesterday to talk through some of these things. Molly knows a lot more of kind of what's happening in the first and new transit area that I don't have all the details, so when she gets here and we will come back to this for more updates there, we can. But that's kind of what I have for development and project updates. We can move to the next one until she gets here.
Well, going back to the 30 and 40%, if I understand it correctly from LHA, we don't have a lot of 30 and 40%, but there are people out there who qualify. So it seems to me that we'll be able to fill those.
Oh, those will get filled immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah. 30 and 40% units are rare. Even just the LIHTC units themselves, and then when you layer them with vouchers, it's even more beneficial for the project. Great. But yes, the fact that they're keeping those is great. We don't have 30% units at AMSA. We don't have 30% units at AMN. And we have some at Spring Creek and some at Fall River, but not many. So those ones are harder to get into development without the PBOP assistance. So the fact that they're keeping those units is Bruce on that.
Yeah. And as soon as that 30% comes online, in any of the units, they get gobbled up really quick.
Oh,
Yeah.
they're the first to get filled, for sure.
So then we'll have those.
We need more of those. The 70s and 80s will offset that financially. We're being very candid with them, and they know from watching the market and how it's saturated with that price point. 70s and 80s are really hard to fill. That's what we're going to struggle with at Ascent, because they're in line with market. And then it's really just a conversation about how do we market these units and get people to understand that, yes, you're going to have to income qualify, but there's no hidden fees. There's no $500 a year rent. There's no crappy land. It's the housing authority. You're going to also get access to a bunch of services that you might not get access to in a market rate. So making sure we tell that story and help people understand that just because it's affordable doesn't mean you don't qualify. I don't know if you want to do like the other projects that are coming in the company.
I think we'll be able to report out some good information in April, but we do, well, no, we can now, actually. I'm trying to think of my public release schedule. We are negotiating a purchase and sale agreement for a property down here at 180 Emory. Council has given us direction to go ahead and do that on the city side, with the idea that that is the next new build. So that's pretty exciting. So we're negotiating that between now and the end of April, with the intent to bring a purchase and sale agreement to council for approval April 28th. We've requested to use the affordable attainable housing tax, the Boulder County money, for that purchase, and so that was introduced to the commissioners last week. And so far, it's all a green light so far. So we're also negotiating our grant agreements for that, to get that purchase under wraps. And in the meantime, we're starting pre-development work to run modeling and see what should this deal look like. So it's pretty exciting though. It's 2.71 acres. It's in a transit-oriented area. Let's see what we can make happen.
Yeah, so on that one, what we were interested in that is, because it's in the TRV area, you may have seen we just received $4 million from DOLA for the transit station in that area. And so there's more funding available through the state right now on anything related to TOD. So strategically, that made a lot of sense for us to maximize potential state funding in it. It's also a qualified census tract, which is a huge win on this one in terms of what we can do. And it's probably, so you may have seen tonight on the agenda, on the city side, the council's considering an agreement with Front Range Community College and a private developer to move Front Range from their current location where they rent to bring them downtown, where it's more integrated across the street from TOD. So as we were talking about it, we think there's a lot of synergy, and if we can really get like a mixed income project here that oddly could be student housing, because if you happen to be a full-time student, you can't live in a LHAAB project. But if we're able to do a mixed income where you underwrite, to Lauren's point, a 70 or 80% unit, but you underwrite it at 60, then there starts to become this really intriguing symbiotic relationship in terms of providing potentially student housing in that location within walking distance. So we're starting to bring a lot of different pieces of the puzzle together as we're looking at all of these issues. As part of that, not related to the housing authority or the city, but related to the urban renewal authority, because it's also an urban renewal area where you can use tax increment financing. We were evaluating it, and our urban renewal consultant was actually able to dissect numbers in terms of rental markets. And I was telling Molly, he kind of said what we thought we all intuitively knew, but he was able to dissect like post 2000 units versus pre-2000 or some cutoff, and there's a significant difference in rental prices. So when we look at rental prices as a whole, the older units are, if you look at it as a whole, it drives your average rents down. But if you look at it just on the new products, your average rents are going up. And what's concerning on that for me is that we're seeing some older units being sold. So what happens is they sell them, they buy them, the reinvestment, and then they redo them, and then they drive up to the prices that are being set by the new units. And so I think we're in a bit of a phase right now that I think in about 2 years, it wouldn't surprise me to see us we're back where we were before, because you had a lot of build, especially on older prices, and everything became stagnant, maybe decreased a little bit. Then if that gets saturated, then you go back into the situation you were in before that. So watching all that pretty close.
So that being an area of anticipated change, it could, has opportunity there to catch that ride and help stabilize that. Okay, I think that's good enough.
Okay, that was one of the questions that I had for you. So this is just an FYI. Last night I attended the transportation board meeting, and they're looking at bicycles and racks and everything. So the way that I understand it is that anything that goes through a remodel is going to be subject to having bike racks. So I was thinking along the lines of, aren't we doing Carstone and Lodge? Eventually here's our next ones. So that's going to be something, unless they have bike racks over there already. Because I specifically asked the question.
Like bicycle racks?
Yeah,
they have bicycle racks.
Yeah, and whether or not they fit that required criteria that's going to go through or not. Because they're going to be bigger to accommodate the bigger bikes and stuff like that. So, yeah, just an FYI.
Yeah, so that's for the e-bikes. And it's interesting. It's kind of some of these state rules that may or may not make sense for certain types of properties. So we'll have to dissect that a little bit.
Yeah, because I was thinking about the senior properties, which, we do have a few of them.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of bikes there, but I do see some three-wheel.
Yeah, another thing we're looking at is bike shares. So separate in the parking lot, the city's doing a bike share project. And so it may make sense when we're resyndicate to work in transportation. Not that we will do it, but that we give them space on our property to do the bike share, the e-bike share, which actually serves a larger geographic area for folks to come in. So that may be something we start exploring too.
They're also going to require coverage of some of the areas too, so, the coverage so to protect the bikes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it's going to be issues. Okay.
And then with the property at Emory, would we have less parking spots as in terms of requirements as it's so close to the transportation code?
Yeah. So you would have fewer parking spots. That will need to be a wrapped project. And so figuring that out is going to be So it'll be a parking garage in the middle. But there may be opportunities to park at the South Main Station because they're interested in potentially acquiring floor parking in that project. So yeah, it's TOD, so less parking. Still gonna need to build a parking garage. Sometimes those wrap products can get expensive. We're actually seeing it on the transit station because you have single loaded corridors. So instead of doing the double loaded with units on both sides, when you're wrapping the garage, you only have one set of units and it starts changing in hundreds. The Urban Renewal Authority supported a project over in Nelson, and that's the first wrap project built in Longmont. And it is because it was a wrap project that the Urban Renewal supported it, because up until now you couldn't get them permits. So that's sort of testing the market a little bit on the market rate side, but we'll learn a lot through the development process. Apparently you can finance a wrap project in Cherry Creek like that, but because it's never been built here, they won't finance it. Without some kind of assistance.
Maybe you change your name to Cherry Creek.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Their rents are pretty good down there, though.
Okay, items for input to the Board of Commissioners.
Our meeting is in April this go around, so we don't have any items right now.
Resident quality of life standing agenda item.
This is very well to bring items forward if you'd like. We have nothing this month.
Well, I just have a question about up there at neighborhood. What is that big hill and that property that sits by the railroad track? That looks like it's a track for bicycles or.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
Is-
that
is that
property has
legal?
been, long story short, on the realtor that was selling that property was found deceased here in town. This was a while back. And the realtor.
Oh.
And so I don't know where that property sits still. Is it still for sale? It's still, yeah.
There's not a
But I'm
sign
sure
up there.
that the kids in the neighborhood are making bike tracks out of it. It's pretty common.
It's the e-bikes,
Yeah.
they're the e-things. Yeah, so no, that's owned by, it's a separate owner.
Right.
And the only time we've been able to do something, and we actually had the owner's permission, was the Russian olive trees, which are considered noxious. And we were having other issues because they were noxious trees. We could come in and take them down. But outside of that, it's not a code issue.
And we've had some unhoused folks camping, which we just contacted the owner. I think we have a trespass affidavit on that property. Current.
I think we did that when we cut the trees
Yep.
down.
So I guess my concern, because for some time I have been a mother, is the hill is right here, the street is right here. I just, knowing kids, I just see somebody coming out in that road, so I don't know.
It's a struggle in that area because the public safety is dealing with a lot of issues in the greenway there. I don't know that I'd even call them e-bikes. They're not
E-motos.
they're e-motos. They're not legal because you can have a class 2 or 3.
You can have up to a class 2. But the e-motos are actually, they're totally separate from the e-bikes.
Yeah, and so, yeah.
And we see that very common for middle school kids. Parents are buying those for kiddos, so this is a good way for them to get to school. And actually it's illegal. So we've got a lot of education being pushed out to the schools right now. That this is more so an issue on the southwest side of town, but on the northeast side, that's where we really see the impact for those bikes.
So they're running from us when we try to stop them, and it's almost impossible. So you're in a police truck, car, SUV, and those things are fast.
they're weaving in and out.
Yeah, I almost hit a kid off that hill,
Yeah.
because he came out in the road. So they had, one of the officers had a group on the stop at 21st, Alpine and 17. But it's an ongoing issue right now around the community, but there's not much we can do.
And we're really waiting to see what the state regulations are before we move. If we pivot one way now, the state may come out with more regulations and then we have to change. So we're really hoping that something happens soon at that level.
Yeah, I was just concerned about the safety there. Okay, moving right along. LHA reports. I'm guessing that's you, Quincy.
Okay. So we will jump to the report. So Spring Creek as of 3/18 next week, if I'm not mistaken, it'll be 100%. Mackenzie and John have worked hard to build those units over there. Fall River, we have 3 vacant units over there. The 30% has an application in process. Unit 102 moved in yesterday, and this report got submitted before they moved in, but I wanted to put that on there. And then unit 103 got moved in on the 5th as well. So we have one more unit over there as well. It's a 30%. Mackenzie has an applicant on that one, so both of those properties will be 100% as of next week. Aspen Meadows Senior, Maria actually filled unit 311 as of yesterday, or 2 days ago, I'm sorry. And we have an applicant on our 30% at Aspen Meadows Senior. So we have 4 vacants over there very soon. It's been tough getting those filled, but we're working that process. Aspen Meadows Neighborhood, we have an application in process, and B6 and F2 are both PPP units, and Quayla Shelby have applicants for those that she sent over to Maria. Also with Aspen Meadows, before we leave that property, we did hire a property manager, Hannah Larimore. She started on Monday, or she started last week. Yeah, Hannah started on the 2nd, and we finally got her access, so she'll be diving into it this week. We got her training today. Hearthstone and the Lodge both have 1 applicant, 1 unit, and applicants on both of those units, so those will be 100% as well. The Suites, unit 7301 and 7221 are LHA units that we are also working to fill with Nikki. The EOC Outreach Colorado project, I'm guessing that started. I don't have too much detail on that, but for the, I guess it's the 20 units that are getting their swamp coolers replaced, or the ACs replaced on the roof, that project is about to be underway. At Santa Hova Crossing, we're still leasing up the property. The posting on Zillow has been posted as approved for, so now we're just kind of waiting to see what funnels in from there. Hopefully we can get some applicants, because the 70s and the 80s are a bit difficult to fill up there. And then Village on Main Street, we have a unit 106 will be filled with an HCB client. Reached out to Jackie, so we're excited about that. She has a movement on the 31st of this month, and she's still working to fill the 50% one bedroom. We don't need to mess with those prices. She does a pretty good job of getting people that want to move in over there.
So, Quincy, going back to Aspen Senior, which of course has the most rentable units, is that because of the price?
Price and location. I don't think price anymore. I think more so location. We dropped the price to $12.50 for them, for the 50% units over there. It's a location thing. The people who do get over there that turn it down and tell us that it's kind of dark.
So you mean more like the building amenities?
Building and location.
Also, this was a pretty small rehab. It wasn't an overhaul, so it doesn't look as new as like Village on Main when we did that one from scratch from the beginning. So it was it still has the original cabinets and things like that, so it's just, and it doesn't have dishwashers. So some of the amenities are just a little behind some of the other ones. If we could do that one over from scratch, we would make a little bit bigger work.
But since dropping the price, Maria has had better luck with getting people, at least getting them there to say no.
Yeah.
So,
Because, I mean, they're decent places, I was just trying to figure out why.
you know, LHA, you know that we have other properties in our portfolio that look really good. So I think that's maybe the expectation. And then when they show up there, it's not the same thing. Sometimes price doesn't matter, right?
Yeah. That's, a lot of the other properties are closer to shopping too, so, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's that market piece too, because right now, if you can get into some of the new builds with the offers that they're putting out there, it may work financially for someone, and then once those offers run out, you see a lot of movement. We actually saw that at Southgate Station when it first opened. They had some really good offers, and my kids actually have friends that moved in there, and they lasted a year, and then they were out because the increases started. So.
I think the same thing happens up there at Aspen or Alpine, where those apartments are.
Yeah.
With Village on Main, you guys are doing replacing the covers for the heating units, is that correct?
The baseboard.
Yeah, for the baseboard heating units. How's that going?
I think it's going fine. I haven't heard anything. We purchased all the materials. I think that's everything yet. So the supplier is holding all of the materials because it's way too much that we can store. So as Calvin works on unit by unit, he's pulling those materials into the suppliers.
How much are we leased up in the center now?
We are at 38%.
And that is all of our 30s, all of our 40s,
All our 30s, all our 40s, all of our 50s.
50s.
It's just 70s and 80s.
So that's a total of, what, 40 units or so? 37 cities? And how many 80s do we have filled? Two.
Two, right off the top of my head.
Out of how many?
44.
So we have, Penrose has a marketing specialist that, are they in marketing?
They're in Chinese.
Okay. We've been working with her here and there, but we're gonna bring her in and help, morph some of our marketing efforts to be, we've never had to compete with the market before, and now we are. And so giving us some technical help and getting, just some advanced marketing assistance, since those rents are similar to what's out there available elsewhere. So how to message the benefits that we have that you wouldn't get from other places, like moving in for a year and then having to leave because of rent increases, and now that fees have to be included, we'll see what that does to competitive rents out there. Since we don't have any of that. So I think I'm hoping that our good press that we got last week from the grand opening will help a little bit, give a little boost and some knowledge, and then your Zillow posting, etc. We're out there. If you're just looking for an apartment, where do you go first? That might be one.
And Mackenzie, the assistant manager at Walker Springs Creek, she came to a convention, so she knows how that market works. So she's been over the summer to get those leased up and taking those calls for her to show the units. So,
Quincy, I know these are properties as opposed to zoning. So I'm showing how there a section of this that looks at linear or any other property besides the project management one. In terms of, are we making money, are we losing money?
So
I see different issues there, are we doing on properties?
I think generally we should Zinnia is its own kind of special animal because it's 100% vouchered, so we're not out there, if there's a vacancy, there's already a line of people that come in through the referral process. So it's a little bit different to track, but I think in the future, as if we add on Atwood, then we can show that as a special category.
And then really we have our budget, we have our expenses, they pay our expenses, but then it shifts into the private world in terms of the margins and things like that, and that may not be something we can share.
But Zinnia is 100%.
I mean, that's why we never really added it on.
Yeah, it's always 100%, and if it's not, it gets 100% within 30 days.
Makes me wonder if there's something sitting out there that we're not paying attention to.
I think we're paying attention.
You're paying attention to it.
Yeah, I got you.
So that's, I mean, the reporting is a question that you have to go on with the owners. And see where the owners are willing to share to, because, I mean, in a contractual relationship, it's pretty simple, isn't it? They pay us, we do work.
Are we charging them for what we're doing, or is it flat rate?
Sure.
It is based on, so we get a management fee based on deposits received. So we get 8% on money that gets brought in. So basically they are tenant rent.
Plus they cover the property manager and the maintenance.
So we cover
costs.
that cost.
Yeah, yeah.
And so if we get to a point where we're not, which those are conversations we're in, then it's a different conversation.
Yeah.
When this is things we're learning, we've tested out in the last 5 years, we've tested out new models for stuff, we pilot projects, the meth detectors are a pilot project we're learning from actively. This third-party property management is a pilot effort we're learning from. Zinnia is, it's permanent supportive housing, so it requires a lot generally compared to what a typical property would be. But what we do know is we are more expensive than any other third-party property manager out there because our benefits are so good, which is great. We hire good people and we can keep them. But if you don't build in the budget very carefully for that, then it could be tough to make ends meet. So that's something we're learning as we go, and going in eyes wide open with Atwood, and when we talked to them yesterday, gave them a very transparent picture of what this could look like. So
Yeah, we're the most expensive property management group out there. Now, there's value that they get with us that they don't necessarily get with the private property management company, Sarah, the reports, the engagement, the connection into the other services that we provide as an organization. But sometimes it just doesn't work for them, and that's okay. And we had that kind of conversation with Atwood, we're having that conversation with Zinnia, it's just how the margins are built. But for example, to your question, the clinicians that we're hiring, either from the city side or the housing authority side, they do not serve Zinnia. And so we do parse our expense, they don't serve Zinnia. So because they're not paying for it, all roads is doing it. So we do manage our expenses and that way if you're going to use it, you're going to need to pay for it. And so that's, I think, part of the challenge.
8 to 10% is a typical number. And then you usually have a 50% release fee per unit, 50% of 1 month's rent per lease up. It's pretty standard.
What we found is 8% is for PSH, but most of our other properties are at 5.
At 5?
At 5. Yeah.
So if you're in the private market, 8 to 10% is pretty typical in terms of management costs. And then again, like for every lease up, you're charging 50% of that of 1 month.
do you find that it scales with class size of property?
It does. I mean, it does. But it also scales with the type of property. Like if they know that this particular property is going to be a huge pain, then you're going to find yourself in that 10%. And instead of 8. It does scale somewhat, but man, finding property management under 8% is locally, like, no, not.
In the private side, do they pay the direct cost for the property managers themselves? Or
No.
is it-
Plus 8%.
See, that's the difference. They pay the direct cost. So if we have a property manager and maintenance person,
Yeah, so the 8% is covering, the 8 to 10 is
Yeah.
covering, but then maintenance is billed back at their hourly rate.
okay.
So if, whatever their hourly rate is for the maintenance guy, it could be about $75 an hour, plus cost of materials, that's all being billed back.
And then for us, we depending on size, we have a full-time community manager for one property pretty much, generally. So I think 5 to 6 is what we've heard is typical for LIHTC, for typical LIHTC property.
So like if Sarah was a property manager, there's a direct line item in the budget for her expenses. Then there's a direct line item in the budget for the maintenance staff expense. And then there's the property management.
Yeah, so you're recovering some of this cost. I mean, you're probably similar, but
We're probably around that 10%.
you know, if you're the property manager, your turning units, which is horrible for the property owner, like that's your most expensive like line item. And if you're the manager, you're turning units, you're getting a half a month on every unit. Like
Yeah.
you don't care. You don't care if you have high turnover or you have lots of vacancies. You just don't care. So it's a different. It's a different. It's a totally different way to look at like owning the building and managing the building.
Yeah.
It's two totally different things.
Whereas our property managers have a vested interest in leasing up, turning quickly.
So going back to Ascent, are those properties that were part of the burn or part of the fire totally rehab?
Those are still under.
This process is slow with insurance, so the insurance adjuster came out last Wednesday after the grand opening and did their assessment, and so we're just waiting for their final approval. We've given them the quote from our construction company on fixing up those units. Luckily, we have a lot of the materials already on site as part of our attic stock, so we can get the progress started quickly, and then we'll just have them order more to replace that attic stock that gets used. We're waiting on the adjuster to sign.
How many units?
Just 3 units, right? One with smoke damage and water, the other two with mostly just water.
Yeah, insurance cover loss or anything?
We are going to ask for loss, potential loss, because those units were, one of them was a PBV that had a scheduled move-in that we removed. The top line, the one that was caught on guard, is also a project restructure that we're working on getting a move-in, and then the one in the middle was just a high-tech unit. But I think the fact, just because they weren't rented out doesn't disqualify us from.
We won't know until the insurance
Yeah.
tells us.
They-
If there wasn't
We're
anybody
trying.
in there.
Yeah, we'll try to get the potential rent that we could have, if we could have had those rented. We did have 2 of them, so hopefully that will count and then we'll give us. No. 2 out of the 3 we're supposed to have.
Child care center, any idea when that's gonna go online?
Yeah. August. So, they're working right now, they're doing the facilities assessment right now. We're trying to convert, because we're changing from an infant room, we're gonna convert a nursing room into a restroom and move the nursing room. So we have to do a little bit of work there, working with our center on their facilities budget versus our budget to sort that. And they're trying to order some storage and they're getting ready to fill it with stuff. And working on hiring, and then still working on bringing in more gap funding to make sure that they're solid on operations. And then the idea is that it would be operational from the new school year.
Then the Longmont Community Foundation
Yep.
voted
Gave them
recently to move the grant that they
$300,000.
shifted the $300,000 to our center, so it's going through that process to get the
That was for
furniture.
yes, furniture, whatever they need to get open. For the term that's blanking in my head right now, but so they have access to that, which is helpful. And then hedgerows, their foundations we're we're using some cost savings for the project to help support, and then their foundation arm is also, we're working with them to see if they can support, and even the tax credit investor has a foundation arm. We're reaching out to just help them. But everything's looking good, the partnership's looking good. We're working on the lease now, since we have to terminated the lease with Wild Plum, and now working on the new lease with our center.
Do we have any idea about the need for the tenants that are already there for childcare, or we're kind of up in the air?
It's kind of up in the air because that is one of the next phases. They're getting everything squared away, so like, yes, we're moving in, but that is one of the next phases, and they know that we're going to be doing advertising to our folks, and then also they're hoping that some of their preschool teachers, the ones that they're hiring, would be interested, so that we're sending them Quincy's way, and our center has their own, advertisement process to get kiddos to. So all of those things will be in play through the summer.
I think that's a piece using Penrose marketing group, because, to be clear, our cost group is not a they're not a marketing agency. And that was I think the realization, and really bringing that marketing in and target marketing into different locations. So one of the things I've been doing is snooping into, I'm rarely on Facebook now, but I've started digging into it a little bit, and it's amazing how many different places I'm seeing people, hey, I am a single parent with a child looking for this type of unit. And the question then is how do we target market into these venues where people are naturally going anyway to find a place to live? Now, I think one of the challenges that I'm seeing is, Lauren and I talked about this, is pets aren't allowed. And a lot of these I'm seeing people that have a dog. And that poses its own issue, but I do think being in Colorado, that's a bit of a headwind for us, because I was shocked when I moved here from Texas about how many different places you could go where you could bring the pets in, versus there you couldn't. And so I think that the pet culture is a thing. And so I think that marketing and that target marketing is something that we're going to have to really work with them on.
And that might be something we look at portfolio-wide.
Yeah.
So that could be it.
Well, there was a change in law last year, any property receiving tax credits going forward must have pets.
So we're going to be forced into that in the future anyway.
Yeah, so it's interesting, my wife's a teacher and she works with a lot of folks, and they were talking to her, because I have her marketing too. And one was like literally saying, they just moved into Market Street apartments over here. Love it. But the amount of disposable income that they have is shrunk because of the rental expense. And I was like, well, tell her about this part. So she started telling her she has a dog. And so we know people are making all of these decisions based on these nuances and just trying to understand it. But yeah, that target marketing is something we're going to have to dig into.
Well, and then they just call it a service animal, and then you're not getting pet rights on it anyway. So you might
But
as
we have to
well
go through a reasonable accommodation and
Yeah, but might as well
that's-
just straight up allow, we never allowed pets until the last probably 3 or 4 years, same thing, like harder to write notes about it. And then also they're squeezing them in like, oh, this is my ESA, and then you're not getting the extra pet rent. Yes, so you have the pet anyway without any of the upside to allowing the pet.
Yeah, the thing I've been exploring too is utilizing AI as part of the target marketing. And there's some interesting things out there. So, we'll see.
What is the crossover going to look like between, if we know it all, the art centers, Aspen Center, and Ascent? Like, do you know if there's going to be any crossover, I guess, sharing of resources or space? Like, I think I heard something about like some food Right, was gonna, like, there wasn't a kitchen, I think, at Aspen Center or something like
That's
that.
something they've struggled with for a long time at
Right.
the City Center, and so they are planning on preparing the food for both facilities at Ascent and
Right.
taking it that way.
Okay.
Generally, when it comes to childcare slots, this is pure expansion, so they'll have both. We don't have any specifics we know what classrooms we're gonna have. I don't know if in time that means maybe because of the space needs that they have over here, maybe they focus their younger kids there and their older kids the other. We'll see how that works out in time, but for now, we know what classrooms we have.
Well, it was interesting, there was a young lady there, they actually got her on camera, and she had 2 kids. And her comment was, and I can't remember it exactly, but the gist of her comment that we actually have on the video was, we finally found a place in Colorado where our rent is reasonable. I think the kids have access to childcare, which means that we can, for the first time since we lived in Colorado, enjoy the Colorado lifestyle because we now have the ability to participate in things like hiking and those other types of issues because we haven't been able to afford it. Like, that was generally what she said. So as soon as we knew that video, that's not going to be front and center because those are the testaments that make a difference.
That was Rogelio's comment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the resident who was there was fantastic. She had one of her kids there, and both. It's just amazing, like watching the speeches and like right in the background.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
You
just.
couldn't have staged
I
that
know. It's. I mean, I can't imagine
That
what's
was not
good.
planned.
A lot of that footage
Right.
is gonna come back. I think it's
Yeah.
gonna be fantastic.
Cool.
Anything else to say?
Okay, Sarah.
Oh,
Again,
one more, sorry.
short, oh, go
No,
ahead.
I'm sorry.
You're good.
Harold, I know you said it was a want, not a need, but have you had a meeting with, the chief of immigrations tomorrow about maybe looking to create a dashboard in the future to present this information a little bit better? So, once we have that, obviously you guys can get what that looks like. Sorry, Sarah.
Oh, you're good. Dipped down this last month for calls. We had 16 at the sweeps, 6 of them were police reports though, so that's kind of an increase in when we take a report versus not.
Never mind.
Animal bite, assault. Everything else, literally 0 to 2 calls. We did have a death at Spring Creek early February. That's it. And then meth detectors, I'm continuing to learn as I go. Our vendor's great. He's been working with some of their technical team to really figure out some of the issues we're having with the connection and communication on the portal versus the devices themselves. Feeling a little bit better with those currently. And that's all I have unless anyone has questions.
Have we had any alerts off of them?
No. None yet.
The good news is that it wasn't alerting when they put them in. Because that was the one thing that, as we were talking to them, it's not, I guess how would I say it? It's not uncommon in new construction in certain places for them to alert before anyone ever occupies it, because apparently in certain areas of the world, the people that are building the facilities are often just meth while they're building. So that was like a good thing to see. But I think that's a testament to the contractor. So if you heard what they talked about, ahead of schedule, under budget, no change orders. So I mean, that's a contractor that is just on point. And so, but I think that was a big part of the contractor.
And the architect too, for building, designing something that did not need changes on the fly.
Yeah.
And been helpful too is that we've had this sporadic move-in, whereas if we had leased up a ton at one time, it would have been, I would have maybe not had much hair left. But it's the way it's working, it's great because I can provision them, make sure they're working properly, and get them the maintenance to install prior to the move-in.
Now, is the contractor installing them then, or do we have?
No, our maintenance team did initial, and our current maintenance staff in Lydell, he and I are a team. Get notified, take it out to him, and he puts it in, so.
So we had 2 evictions last Friday.
Lauren went to trial on one of them yesterday, and long story short, I'm guessing we got possession, or we get possession.
We have a stipulation.
There's a stipulation on that one, and the other one we were there for, we're gonna get possession for that one, we never showed up.
What about the guy who signed the voucher from us? He said something to you when you were walking out.
That, I had no idea who that guy was. He was just talking to me. I had no clue who he was.
He's a voucher guy.
Never seen him, met him a day in my life until that day. Yeah.
I was surprised. He said he hadn't paid his portion of the
So like an HCB voucher holder, but not an LHA property
No,
and
he
HCB
was
holder?
copper fees.
Okay.
I wondered into that one because I didn't know he was voucher holder.
And was he our voucher holder, or was he?
He said he was ours,
I mean, we don't know until the landlord complains.
Yeah.
As soon as he said it, I backed away and got somebody else to do it.
To that end, has anyone looked at this House Bill 26-1106? It's really.
I have been looking at them.
So we discussed the eviction suppression bill last month, and this is a new one that was just introduced, kind of a companion bill, but the name of the bill is eviction protection for tenants. And it's really bad. I mean, so it basically guarantees a jury trial for non-payment, and it limits the number of filings per day.
You did see that one.
They don't
Yeah.
say what, how many filings per day. Additionally, it extends the time of your sheriff's order to, it's either 30 or 60 days.
And they can also
Really?
depending on the weather.
And, it's weather dependent, and additionally, even if you get a judgment, so say your tenant doesn't show up, they have 30 days to come back and say, I couldn't get to court because,
Right.
basically every excuse, anything, and then they vacate and have to start.
So
I mean, it is-
staff
it is-
recommended that, so city council does take official positions, and staff recommended oppose on this one. And, this one was, hang on, let me just double check, this is the one that Sandy did.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was.
They did.
They did oppose.
There was a long conversation with the council. Some of the things that the council talked about is we did talk about the fact that there is an unfunded mandate going with this because of the cost that it takes to move through the process.
Of course,
And,
the court costs would be insane.
yeah, and the time.
Yeah.
We also talked about some of the similar things that we talked about last year is that it has also been, I think, a threat to the naturally occurring affordable rental markets because, we did see people are getting out of the business.
So
of
we had,
renting.
in October, we had 30 units in our town. As of today, I have 5. So we've sold 25 doors since October because you just cannot, as a private landlord, you just cannot.
And were
these
those
are-
single
these are-
family houses?
No, so it was a mix. So a mix of duplexes. It was a small apartment building, and then we sold just on Friday 8 duplexes.
So single family, not attached single family?
Yeah, so 16 units, but they're multifamily, but a lot of those tenants, we had an original tenant who was there 17 years, and her rent reflects that, and now we've sold, and I bet 50% of that whole portfolio won't even last the next, I mean, they'll do new leases in a month and they'll have to go.
Yeah.
So you're just seeing, and I'm seeing this in this market, it's just, you just, as a small, sub 50 units, and people have between 10 and 30 like us. So.
Yeah, and it's interesting to watch, I don't know, Arlene, if you've noticed in our neighborhood, there's been houses, there's a couple near me that were rented that are now for sale. And they're selling for a, kind of market rate. And people are buying them. And so now it's a house that was on the rental market that is now, it's kind of weird, right? So it is helping the housing, the for sale market, but not helping the for sale market when we need it. So now this has become something that was probably naturally occurring affordable for a 3-bed, 4-bed, that now is being purchased, but it's a market rate purchase. So that inventory is now gone, which is impacting a different sector of the market. It'd be really, if you wouldn't mind, would you mind sharing those numbers with us? Because I think we could anecdotally talk to the council about this, but I think having someone who
I'm happy to share even like rental amounts that we were charging, what I was charging, and what I know is going to happen.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be great.
So we include, these are all duplexes, so there's shared water taps, and we always include water, which has been increasing. And I know the person who bought it, they run a large, in both cases, our parent building was bought by a REIT, and then our portfolio was bought by a really large management company, not one of the good ones. And so not only is the quality of the housing they're going to receive going to decline, but at the closing they were already talking about, well, we're going to pull all that water out, we're going to build back. I mean, we're looking at, they buy the portfolio because you're in the market, so they see the potential of increasing their cap rates. And so, I bet every tenant in that portfolio will see at least $200 rent increase in addition to then having the water and sewer. So we're talking like $350, $400 per unit. Per month, yes. Not for the year, every month.
Yeah, if you could share that, that'd be great, because I think that was a challenge when we were answering the questions to the council. I could generally speak to it, but now having the data would be really good, even to follow up with the council to say, here's what we were saying, here's what's happened with one property owner in the last month, and if you're okay with us saying it, is really to also say it is a product of all this legislation.
And it's not that we're leaving the market, we're actually under contract on a 30-unit in Kentucky and a 10-unit in Carolina. So that's what we're going.
Which one in Kentucky?
Kentucky,
where in Kentucky?
right outside of Louisville and Owensboro.
Yeah, oddly, I'm starting to get all of these. Somehow somebody's found me an email, and they're sending me all of these properties that are for sale. And
It's your wife's Google.
no, this is my work email. This is my work email, so I'm getting a lot from Tennessee, Kentucky, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia.
So we're actually going to increase our probably rental mix by, we'll have 40 instead of 30, but just not here.
You're maximizing your value. It should be cheaper,
Well,
right?
it's cheaper per unit.
Yeah.
Rents are continuing to increase. They're pretty stagnant here.
Yeah.
And you don't have you can still get people out. The laws are not. They're much more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, Kentucky, you can basically like buy,
Yeah.
move along kind of thing. So it was a conscious choice on our part. We're not exiting real estate. We're exiting Colorado.
Yeah. That would be really good if maybe we just, because I want to pick your brain on the other, maybe set some time up and just pull that down from you so we can send that to the council, because that's the technical information we need to help them understand what's coming. Because now, you just now almost verified what my fear is that we're here and then we're going to go here.
Well, just thinking of we have this small apartment building, but most of our outbuildings are, our duplexes are anywhere between 2 and 4 bedroom units with a yard, a garage, more of a single family type
Right.
housing. And those will still exist as rentals because they're purpose built, but the rental prices are much.
Okay.
Sorry, on that happy.
Yeah,
We're ready to move on to financials.
Yeah. So I'll kind of give an overview. We were owner in vacancy almost on every single property. What you can also see is in some properties we were also over in revenue, but that's also because you don't budget to the full HCD rent because they're affordable. So with some of the properties, that was kind of a wash. So if you're over in vacancy, but there was some on the MSA in Fall River where we had a lot of activity, a lot of vacancy going on. That didn't. But we monitor these budgets monthly. We weren't really in the red on any of these as far as operating. They look like they're in the red now, but that's because depreciation and all the non-operating gets booked at year end. So AMSA had an over budget with flooring repair, and that was because of the relocation that we had to do for some of the tenants when they were having their flooring redone. Fall River and Spring Creek had some increase in bad debt expense. AR that was sent over to collections. Hearthstone had the fire and the lodge also. They also experienced insurance increases. So pretty much after the fire, Hearthstone received a 20% increase for their insurance. So that took a hefty toll. But what I will say about Hearthstone and the lodge is we just did get confirmation from HUD. We had sent a request for an increased budget for the reserve amount, and we got it approved. So we got a pretty hefty increase to our reserves, almost $6,000 a month for both the Hearthstone and the lodge. So that got approved by HUD, so that was awesome. For the suites, it's mainly bad debt expenses where we saw the higher increase, and that was, we had several tenants in situations. We had one that was an abandoned PDD unit. We had another one that was, it just took forever for eviction. And what happens is, in some circumstances, the voucher ends, but their lease doesn't end. So they're supposed to take on full amount of rent that's within their lease. Well, when you have subsidy, that's $1,500 a month. That adds up, and it takes a while to get somebody evicted. So they had some pretty big, hefty items that got written off, but sent to the collections on the suites. Briarwood had boiler repairs, so they had a boiler mishap. What we found is that we had too big of a boiler that was not working itself enough that ended up leaking, so they made a replacement and changed it so that it wasn't too big for what it needed to be. But we did have some water damage that occurred with that one. And
So what is the status on that property with front
I'll let her speak to that one.
Sure. So we've been looking into the property's eligibility for home art funds. So these are COVID money. Because All Roads has a home art award to purchase scattered sites in Longmont to expand their scattered site PSH portfolio. And things have been tough with that because of all of the market changes. And so we've been doing due diligence to see about the eligibility of purchasing Briarwood with those funds. And we do have a green light from all of the regulatory funding compliance sides of things to do that. So All Roads is right now considering, we've done property inspections, and they are right now considering whether they want to move forward or not, given all of the information. So we've been in this due diligence period for about 6 months. It is nothing, like right now, the property is not for sale, and I want to say that specifically because if this is an interest of All Roads, then we need to do a very in-depth engagement effort with the tenants who would never be displaced. But we're still in that due diligence period to see if that is an option. So, TBD.
Then LHA, they had some higher maintenance costs. We did take on funding some additional work with the Hartstone and the Lodge for the defense contract, so that kind of over with our on-call pay and overtime. And then our housing assistance vouchers obviously increased. We were in shortfall. So we had increased expenses there, but we did get shortfall money. We got about $155,000, which allowed us to be at a restricted net position of $9,245 at the end of the year. And right now, after March's vouchers, we're looking to be in the black at about $50,000, but that's why HUD has requested that. We still maintain not absorbing courts, not issuing any vouchers. Let's make sure we get all the PBBs in place at a cent. And we actually have several PBBs that are outstanding in other properties too. So once those also get filled, that'll change the portfolio, so we'll be monitoring that the rest of the year. As far as AR, a lot of the change is literally the year-end write-offs. We had about $26,000 in September, and then you look in December, all that's been written off, which is lower the AR balance. So we're not, there's certain properties that have high balances, but a lot of it's due to people not paying rent, going through the demand phase, eviction phase, and working through those. And so does anybody have any questions on the AR or the financials?
So under the suites, you have the past tenant balances of $1,170, but it's the only one that shows that.
Yeah, because that one wasn't, so we do work through a process of our bad debt. So that one was a past tenant at that time, but we hadn't worked through trying to get collections, trying to a repayment plan. So that's why that one shows. And it'll probably not show in the next 3 months by March, yeah.
Okay.
So Aspen Meadows Senior Apartments, their equity is negative. Do we need to raise capital for that one at all, or is there?
Well, so here's what's interesting about that is they will continue to grow and be negative because of all of the interest that gets booked along with the depreciation. So they build these projects to be more in a loss situation for tax credit purposes. So right now with AMSA, the problem is it's a low unit number and they're all 50% units. So they're really hard to fill. So we have a budget in place, but we're going to have to really monitor that one. I don't know that if you bring money into this, you have to ask the investor if you can put money into the project because it becomes their equity, and they may not want that.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's the thing is I didn't know. Is there a need for it to be positive, or is it? It's expected to be.
It's expected. They usually start out, and then as you see it go over years and years and years, the more interest. Some of these interests, and that one I think has several loans with like 8, 6% interest, where some of them have like maybe 2, but the interest is really high, and it also had a carryback note that was an extremely high balance that has a really big interest. So that one is. And then it also reflects on our financials as AR. So it brings our equity up looking like we have this money coming back in, but it's not until 40, 30 years down the pipeline, which is why we have to go based on cash on the LHA side.
And then the other one I saw was the lodge has cash, or at least I think just unrestricted cash of only $1,000. I mean, anything to be concerned about that either, or is that something?
Oh, that's the lodge in Arstone.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like more,
Yeah.
we're waiting on HUD money then, I'm assuming. Right?
Yeah, so here's the problem with that is the way HUD builds their budget is we build it down to like $500 at the end of the year. And so we have to really monitor. They don't give us any extra. They gave us extra for our reserves, but that's basically going to be money that's going into the reserves. It's a really hard property to manage. I built in the maintenance techs because they have to really monitor their budgets. We also have to be careful with what we ask for the replacement reserves because what we thought was going to get replaced through the reserves did not, which was we replaced furniture that was in community room because it was worn, it was there in the beginning. And they did not give us reserve money for that because of the old 2019 memo that was in the books that said only this can be covered with reserve replacements and none of that said furniture. And when I pushed back and said they have a community room built, like this, there's tables, there's chairs, there's things that would have to be replaced. They're like, well, you have to work that within your budget. And I'm like, we have a $5,000 maintenance repair budget, and you guys took stuff out of our budget. Like our last HUD rep took carpet cleaning stuff that was operational out of the budget and said I had to do it with replacement reserves. And I have the email saying that. She said, well, no, new HUD. This is what we're abiding by. So those properties do run. I mean, we have to watch cash balances, and right now, usually we're not paying the management fees for LHA until we actually get the final word from HUD, and it takes. I mean, we submit these budgets in August, and September, and I just got the approval this month. So, yeah, unfortunately, those ones have always been that way.
And then, what are we budgeting for other agencies? Since everything is over budget.
I think we did 96%. I think that's what we did, 96%. The other thing is the vacancy report that we also provided. Accounting is going to start providing this report on a monthly basis. So that way, before we used to report, we're at 95% vacancy. But what that doesn't tell you is is that the same units from last month? Or is it new units? So you can kind of see. So that vacancy report will show you the move-out date for that unit, what occurred, so whether it was somebody that passed away, whether they were relocating, that information, and then provide you with the dollars lost, along with another report that shows you the dates. So we'll provide this report. Quincy will have to speak to the why that things aren't getting leased up or the struggles that they're seeing on the operational side.
And can this be run on the running 12 rather than calendar year?
We can do that, yeah.
I think that would be more valuable so you can see the prior 12 months. Yeah.
Yep.
So on that report, I'm noticing that some of the move-out dates are several years back. I actually was trying to figure out how many we actually had in 25. Is there a reason for that?
Like, give me one.
Okay, so under the first one.
Was it AIN? That says 2022?
Yeah.
That was the meth unit that took us forever to build. I do know that one. Some of these, and that's why you would probably want to see the running, because you're not going to see that, and that's why I put the move-out date. So this unit has been vacant since that time.
Since that time.
And that vacant date is when we gained possession. So that is the possession date that we've received. If it's relocating, more than likely, unless they just left, which does happen sometimes, they should have gave notice. So even 30 days before then, we've also let them know that they're wanting to vacate.
Because I looked at these and I thought, holy cow, if we had to do all of these in 25, it's a lot of places to have to fill. So,
yeah. It is a lot.
Yeah.
So I'll add that as a running total. Does anybody have any questions on that one?
So your question on budget, so when we look at the vacancy rate, there's a hedge in the budget. And the hedge that we have is we don't fully budget for the rents associated with the housing choice vouchers. And so we build that in as a hedge to then know that if we're not gonna hit the vacancy rate, there's two things. We can't count on it because it is portable. Now, we know typically they don't move, but what did we decide to do?
We did 75%.
Yeah, so we're building a cushion in on the HCV side to kind of help us with the vacancy rate issue. It's not equal on all properties, and I think as we're getting better at understanding it, we're getting better every year at balancing that offset. But that's part of the solution to your question.
And then vouchers. So the voucher report kind of shows you on a monthly basis where we kind of landed. We landed at 9,245 with our restricted head position. So, and that is literally on just the voucher side. We're at about 600,000 on the admin side. And that is good also when you go to shortfall, because if they don't have funding, then they actually have to use your admin funding to make up that cost. So we do have a pretty good cushion there. But again, we're not vouchering, we're not absorbing, and what we are supposed to maintain and watch our budgets this year, according to 2 letters by big boots at home. So that's where it is.
And our administrative fees that we get is over and above this, right?
Yeah, so that's over and above. It's on the separate. So we get about 40,000 per month to handle administrative, and then a lot of what that takes care of is people that are budgeted for HCD, along with inspections. We have to do HQS inspections, so we pay a third-party contractor for that. And then they do a lot of mailings. Got a lot of postage in there, and that's one of their big costs. But yeah, so we don't spend all the money that we get on the admin side in a year.
Can you carry it over?
Oh yeah, it carries.
Okay.
It continues. So you start with what you had at the end, at the beginning of 2026, and I can provide both those reports, the RMP and the unrestricted position.
How many vouchers we've lost or people have terminated?
Well, so what she's looking that up as they give up the vouchers. So that's what we've been doing the last year and a half. We just absorb and put them in. And so this was part of the conversation with the shortfall person that I joined. And really it's, my point was you're just taking functional vouchers away from us because you're not increasing the dollars coming in. And she completely agreed with it. The reality is that that's purely a congressional decision. So, theoretically, if they don't increase the value and we continue, the conversation really was, hey, you got us into, I didn't say you, but I said, we got into this position because HUD said, here's what the market rent is. You remember the year that it just blew up. And then they were like, oh, we made a mistake, and then they went down, but still didn't take it to where it needed to. So you're setting the rents, so you're taking the rent reasonableness up. Then Kendra came in and said, and the landlords, because of property taxes, utility increases, are taking advantage of that. So you're decreasing the functional vouchers that we actually have to hand. Everybody agreed on that, and the answer was depends on Congress. So we could really, if we continue into this kind of world, just continue to see a decrease in the number of functional vouchers that we have, because it's all based on the money. And so Kendra, do you have that number now?
Yeah, so, we started in January with 428 vouchers, ended at 404. And that includes any PDPs that aren't used. We're actually, I think, down to 395 now. But we have to weigh adding the PDPs.
And that's the thing, is it takes away,
Yeah.
Yeah.
when we add PBBs, it takes away from our other vouchers,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have 18 currently right now that aren't filled, but I have a voucher count of 395. So we'll definitely increase in vouchers, but with that, how many do we have to lose on the HCD side to accommodate the increase in cost in 3 and 4 bedroom fair market rents? Because the PBBs is where you really see the entities take full advantage of the fair market rent. Not all landlords take advantage of that or know about it, or maybe it's, she says yes they do. But maybe new ones coming on board don't just yet. Maybe. So yeah, I mean, I would say not all of our voucher holders have the full fair market. But they also have to have rent reasonableness, so maybe what they're in is a rent reasonable with like the fair market rates too. So we do have to weigh each voucher against that as well.
And the 18 that's for,
Some of it's Ascent, some of it's Fall River, some of it's the Suites, some of it's,
yeah.
yeah.
So like on Atwood, we did tell Atwood, because I think, looking at Molly, we did put project-based vouchers into that project, and then we told that they're not available. So then you can see the snowball getting larger downhill, because then that creates a financing issue for them in their project. And
The 8 project-based vouchers that they were counting on, once those were not able to be issued because of this, that resulted in a $1.4 million gap to the project. That's how valuable those are.
Okay. Carol.
yeah, so I think kind of the theme on this is, if you happen to see when I gave the State of the City speech, I actually had a graph that kind of talked about headwinds, tailwinds, what we control, what we don't control, and the reality is there's a lot that we don't control that I think at times we try to control. And to me, that's a little bit of wasted effort. So getting clear-eyed in terms of what can we control, what can we not control, how do we move through those things. And obviously, Lauren has talked to you all about issues, so you're going to see more of me as we continue moving through this process. The thing that I'm really going to, and we've been talking about this for a while, but the thing that I'm really going to be focused on is process, procedures, accountability, and those types of details. So I've been chatting with folks individually in terms of bringing some process mapping into place. How do we take that process mapping into then generating operational reports? So a little bit of what Kendra talked about on the vacancy piece, but then, how are we taking people through the different steps? Are we getting the steps? Are we getting what we need to do? And figuring out how we can integrate that into Yardi and create cheat sheets. So part of the reason for that, and from my perspective, is that, we talked about this, we've been in a period of chaos for a while. We're not in that period of chaos anymore. Unfortunately, the world's always going to change on us, but we're in a more stable period, and I think this is a point between finishing Ascent and starting the next project, where we have the capacity and as things like front range start moving, and I have capacity to really dig in on processes and procedures and building online accountability tools so that it's showing us what we need to see in terms of like, a basic question for me is, if seeing each property manager and how they're working people through the process, are we all hitting the same steps? If not, why are we not hitting those steps? But really getting those nuances and details, same on the maintenance side, in terms of budget control. Because on the maintenance side, one of the things that I want to start understanding is, and I said this to Lauren about 2 or 3 months ago, they're fully moving in the RE on the maintenance side, because what I want to start seeing is inventory. And if we're making 10 trips a day to Home Depot, well, I want to figure out how do I reduce it to 1 trip a day? Or do we move that into our warehouse? Do we contract to move into the warehouse in the city where we actually keep an inventory of the common things that we use? Because if we do it and we know their jobs, similar to what we do in our fleet department, the warehouse will box it up by job. So it's budget control. So that's a lot of what I'm going to be digging in over the next few months. We had a meeting with the group before, and we went with Riley, and I said, well, because he asked the question, he goes, what's one of the things that's different? And I heard something, I can't remember what the question was. And my point to the group was you haven't seen the true need. By design, because in chaos, you have to manage it. And I told them, you're now going to start seeing the true need. And it's those kinds of issues and that kind of accountability structure. Sarah's probably seen it more on public safety and the budget discipline and those types of issues where we really dig into it. But they're ready for it. It's a good team, they're ready for it. And so we're going to start pressing on those issues. And there's not a better time than when you're not building something or trying to do that. So we have a window. That's going to be the big thing we're going to start seeing. Yes.
That's it. Okay. Now it's open to any of you guys if you have any questions, comments.
Audit going to be moving along here pretty soon?
We're in audit week right now.
What's that gonna do with you here?
We started.
What are you doing here?
We actually started. So, yes, he started Sunday. I started last week uploading everything. But what we found last year is that our audit was scheduled too late, and the city has to roll our audit into their financials. So we had to push ours up like 2 weeks. So yeah, we're in audit right now. Hey, we had a lot of green yesterday. I was showing my team, look, we're in the green. Because they knock off everything that they accept or send back. So yeah, most of the properties are done except for Hearthstone and the Launch. Those just started because those aren't due to HUD until the end of March. So, but all the other properties audits are complete in the investors' hands, so they can have their tax returns. Next step. Okay.
Anything else? And I need a motion and a second to adjourn. Okay. We'll see you on the 14th of April.